one piece of candy.
How many?
One. You may eat it, but you got to keep the wrapper so you remember what you had. We're going to pass it around. For those of you who have a shorter attention span, I'm Deb Thalner. I oversee our online programs. And then, you know, like many of you, I just sort of fill in and change hats whenever somebody asks me to do something. So this afternoon, I'm going to lead us on a little activity about advising. Yeah, just pick one and move along. If you choose wrong, I've got extra later.
Who gets the business?
Cynthia. Good. So this morning,
Throw them at dawn.
So this morning, we put a lot of information out to you. There was some good interaction, but a lot of it was delivering information to you. This afternoon, we're going to do the reverse. We want information from you to us. This is an awesome group because we have such a diversity, not only in programs, but in folks who have been advising for years to new folks who are brand new with us and have different perspectives. So we're going to go through an exercise this afternoon where, of course, I'm going to put you into teams. And I want you to answer some questions for us. The answers of which we're going to use, and I'll send these back out to everybody in the group, but, you know, as soon as I type them up later. But essentially, think of it in terms of, if we were hiring a new advisor to come join our team, what would you be telling them they need to do to be a really great advisor? So that we can use this as we're in, you know, sort of onboarding new advisors. I think it's also good, sort of, at least for me, as a little double check periodically. We can get kind of focused and in a routine, and sometimes it's kind of good to break out and go, oh yeah, I haven't really been telling them about how to submit a FAFSA or whatever. So how are we doing on the candy distribution? Getting there? Okay.
No, we need one more over here.
Somebody eat it?
She said you could eat it, but you have to eat your wrapper.
Oh.
I haven't eaten a wrapper.
No choices.
That's how you do
Did
it.
you get one over at, Steve, did you get one?
Good choice.
Okay, okay, so where's that? So, I'm gonna go around the room, and we've got 8 flip charts. And I'm going to, based on the candy you selected, put you into groups. And you will have, as a group, a card with a question that you're to answer. Essentially, they're all, what are the top 5 types of questions? So if you, again, if you were to tell a new advisor 5 things, what are the top 5 things that address this question? You'll want to have a reporter, so somebody who writes it on the flip chart, and then at the end we'll go around and report out. Sound good so far? Who has Butterfingers? All right, you guys are up here. Who picked Crackle? Anybody? You on the phone? Okay, there's more than one Crackle. Who picked Reese's? Reese's peanut butter cups. Will you take that? You will be over there. What do you have? Who picked Nestle's Crunch? Nestle's Crunch. Joe, would you go to that flip chart?
I know, I didn't.
I don't think we're leaving the room. We're not leaving the room.
Baby Ruth. Baby Ruth over in this corner.
But the coffee. There you go.
Nestle's milk chocolate in the red shiny. Over here. Hershey's, the traditional Hershey's. Up here with Carrie.
And that leaves.
Anybody pick special dark chocolate? I'm going to give you guys this back. All right, you have about 10 minutes to come up with your top 5.
Top 5 things that need to happen for an advisor and advising to build strong
I think, he's doing an academically. He's, on task or things we have to do, or change, update.
They're not listening to the directions. These are organized, you want to just perfect. Right?
Yes.
Developing their own sense of ownership.
I mean, I don't know, I mean,
That's another one.
Does that fall under understanding our program though?
yeah.
Yeah.
But if we don't give them.
We need to, I know we only need five.
I think another one is working closely with
Overachievers, this is the overachiever room.
working closely with site, bring it to 4 after the 5 quick.
You have about 4 minutes left.
Yeah, even though I'm Big Rapids understanding, I deal with Tracy on these issues. And who
Exactly,
to send them
so
to.
staying close to the site experts, so to speak.
Including the
But we need
colleges.
to, we need to teach them how to, teach them, like I said, teach them to fish.
The ownership.
To fend for themselves, to take ownership.
For me,
To be, yeah,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean, I think that getting to know them is important, and then do what you say what you mean. If I tell my students I'm going to feel like I'm going
I mean, I know all the advisors that we work with. Sitting there this morning listening. Wow, look at all these guys out here standing. And Dan, but if you're talking about things like how do you maintain consistency, no wonder it's a challenge, you know, and especially folks like Doug and their team have had some fluctuations. You know, whatever we don't really address oh yeah, I had the same question for you. Oh, what about? And I know they did all of it. It's a little different when you're not really looking at students in the eye. Yeah, and the sharing. Good, good. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think we're pretty casual. Tough gals. We aren't very which sometimes is a problem, because sometimes other organizations are, and it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to just ask the dean, I'm supposed to go through the board.
keep walking, sorry.
But if you're a big man or a girl, you're unlucky. We have no medium. You're a medium.
Okay, okay. Da 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 da. I've never had a microphone before. It was exciting for a minute. All right. All right, we're gonna try and report out. Everybody get 5? Some overachievers got more than 5. We are going to start with the group over here. If you guys would tell us what question you were answering and what your top 5 were.
Top 5 things you need to tell a newly admitted student when you first meet with them. First was the check sheet to study, learn, and follow it. Second, CC advising on macro, any other issues and stuff that you feel are important for them to go to the CC and talk to. Third is financial aid info, consortium form, FAFSA, and budget. Fourth, regular meetings and follow-up. And fifth, MyFSU and FSU email, making sure that they're checking that and understand it.
What do you guys think? Good? All seem like good ideas for the new student? Anything significant that you say is more critical than any of those 5 that should be added?
Good answer.
So pretty good answers. Thank you, gentlemen. Next up.
Our question was, what are the top 5 tools, websites, or how-tos that you should recommend students use? So most of ours are tools. Our first one was the FSU Transfer Services page, so they can get to the transfer guides specifically and transfer equivalencies from community colleges. Second tool was MyFSU, using their academics and services area, Ferris email, academic calendar, learning how to do Ferris Connect, all that stuff that register for classes, etc. in MyFSU. Third tool, My Degree. I know some aren't using it yet, but some are, and it works. So that is a good tool for the student to use, obviously, to follow their plan. Fourth would be the financial aid area on the statewide site. So sort of website, but there's a lot of information in there, so consortium information and everything as well. And then fifth would probably be more of a website if you put it in our Ferris website, but the important dates page. So it shows by semester when payments are due, when registration is, other important dates for each semester that students will need to know.
Very good. Would you hand that off to the next team?
Just got a quick question regarding that. I was told last year that My Degree really isn't very well suited yet for off-campus. Is that changed now? Has that gotten better?
No.
Okay, how am I going to answer this, advisors that work with me?
Yes. No.
The answer is it depends. It's always my answer. There are some programs, Allied Health is using it for all their online programs. They have managed to make it work. Business, we are looking at how we can make it work for the BizAd and the BizAd ProTrack. They need to be scribed correctly, and not all are scribed. So there is some sort of behind-the-scenes programming work.
So it's not quite a finished product.
Right. Now, having said that, the way Allied Health has made that work is they recognize it's not perfect, and they do some what they are calling exceptions, force completes. There's a way in the system to say, yep, I know you're not recognizing that as a cultural enrichment, but it is, so make it so. And so they've found workarounds. And so, for example, I don't think Katie or Dion do any check sheets anymore. It's all My Degree. I should probably let you give your summer example of how your summer was different this year.
I have been using My Degree for Allied Health since last fall, and I moved all 800 and some students that I advise over to My Degree this summer, and it's, for me as an advisor, it's the best tool. The plan, in our nursing classes, our first nursing course in our RN to BSN program, they're required to build their own personalized education plan. They do that strictly through My Degree. That's their only option. I go in and make sure that all the requirements have been met within their degree for their plan. And so My Degree does work. There are some behind the scenes, and I understand that there are some programs that it doesn't work as swimmingly as others, but the only way it really can work is by people trying to utilize it and manipulate it and all of that stuff to make it work. There are some training sessions. Here's a plug for myself, Deb. I'm sorry. Awesome. There are some training sessions on My Degree if you wanted to come and learn more about it, what it looks like, what it what tools it provides to advisors. I'm doing 6 of them on August 22nd, starting at 8:30 in the morning and going until 4. So if you wanted to come, there's a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced sessions. The flyer should be out probably early next week so that you can come and see. And if you ask Jim Lindsay, My Degree is the #1 the website with the most hits for Ferris State University, because even though we as advisors are not using it, our students are. And so eventually we need to get to the point where it does work, but I have not done check sheets and I absolutely love it. I'm probably the biggest geek on the planet, but it has certainly changed how I do advising.
And as those transcripts come in from a student who's taking community college classes and they're entered into Banner, boom, My Degree is updated. So you don't have to go through and update the check sheet. So there's some sort of extra work sometimes up front when a student's admitted to make sure My Degree looks right, but I think you get that savings on the back end. Other questions for this team before we move on? Good job.
Our question was, what are the top 5 things that you can do to help a student feel a part of Ferris? Now, I want you to, a little disclaimer on the front end. Some of these things we've done, and some of these things we thought would be a doggone good idea. So we can't say that we've done it, but send an email as soon as students are admitted that you find out about it. Bribe them maybe by saying, we have something for you in our office. It might be a t-shirt, it might be a marker, it might be a Tootsie Roll Pops that are always there. It'll be something. A second one is listen to students' needs to find their passion and then connect it to the subject area. And some of us are subject specific. Some of us are more generalists, but you can find something at Ferris that would light their fire, and that's what we need to do. Discuss the placement of Ferris State University graduates so they understand that students are being placed. We have high placement rates, and that they're going to be successful once they graduate. Relate to students on a personal level so that they can understand you and they feel you're on their side. You understand where they're coming from. Maybe they have certain things going on in their lives that they need to have maybe 6 credits a semester or for a while, or they're going to have a baby. I had someone was going to have a baby and they were going to drop out for a year, and I'm going, no. Let's try to take just 6 credits and work around that baby. And she was happy about it, but that wasn't even my idea. That was somebody else's, but I just was throwing that in. And then we think a big thing that we really should work on is connectivity to students, to Ferris, and students to each other. And we thought of some ideas that we might be able to do that, to make them feel like they are part of Ferris. Because a lot of students have that disconnect. They don't realize they're part of the big picture. And we thought that there are student organizations that kids can get involved with on the main campus that aren't afforded to our off-campus students. So what could we do to maybe bring some of those organizations to our off-campus sites? One of the people in my group mentioned that he tries to create projects that involve Ferris-related projects so that they're tied into Ferris a little bit more. To build a sense of community within the classroom setting between our faculty to make sure that they are building that sense of community. And off-campus service project for the whole off-campus to do something in your community. One, it's going to look good on their resume. They're going to meet other people from Ferris that aren't in education or aren't in CJ and feel the love. And there we go.
Any questions, suggestions?
Just a few things. Reminder that if they surveys, gosh, I owe nothing of Ferris. They can get a Ferris t-shirt if they complete that online orientation. About 2 years ago, we made it possible that at all the statewide locations, they have cameras so that we can get a photo of a student and produce a Ferris ID. Unfortunately, it's not right at that moment, but we get it mailed and can get it to them. For online students, we can do a workaround. So, you know, most of the online folks know how we can do that. So we can service those students as well to get a Ferris ID card, because I think that's part of feeling of belonging to that institution. And then the statewide trip, which we did not do this past fall because I was still recovering from Casey's maternity leave. But I just have to point that out there. But you know, that statewide trip where we bus students from across the state to go to main campus, I think we were looking at maybe a hockey trip for the next one. But so those are other opportunities that we have in place, and definitely don't forget to mention those pieces as well.
Good.
I'd like to thank the marketing department for giving our students that go to like national conventions Ferris t-shirts, and they all show up at the trade shows with these Ferris t-shirts, and all of a sudden they feel like they belong to a cool college. Plus they're advertising our brand to all the people that are looking to hire them. So I think that's so I want to thank marketing for doing that for us. Our group, the question was, what are the top 5 things you need to tell prospective students who are interested in your program? In our case, in digital animation game design, one of them is that you're going to be judged by your portfolio and your skills, not by your degree. And that like raises a lot of people's eyes. Go, really? Yeah, it's like, you know, the network you create and the skills you have are important. The other thing was the macro was a very important thing to get involved with, you know, to actually, you know, pay attention to that. Okay, how your credits come over for community colleges, that's another very important thing. And how to show them the tools that we use, like the macro website, where you could actually figure this out for yourself if you need to. Also, another thing is explain the rigors of any job that you're going to get into. You know, that this is just because you get a degree doesn't mean all of a sudden life is going to be paved. You know, there's actually going to be some work involved. But also about what's the difference between an on-campus experience and an off-campus experience like we have. You know, we don't have the same type of environment. So that's basically it.
Ideas, suggestions, comments? Okay, nod your heads, so at least I know what I'm doing.
All right, our group had the question, what are the top 5 things you can do to help retain a current student? And we ended up with 6. We had an afterthought that probably should have been one of our first thoughts, but it was an afterthought. So we have, the one that we added was having a good working knowledge of the academic resources and support resources that are available for an off-campus student. So for example, that might include having a working knowledge of if a student at a given location is allowed to use the tutoring center at that community college for a support service. What is available to that student through flight as an off-campus student? How do they access information and documents, those types of things. So really about academic resources and support, so that if you have a student that comes to you that is in trouble or in need, or you're identifying maybe falling behind, you know, what are the things that we can give them as tools? And then we have, in terms of retaining current students, regular and targeted communication. So the idea within our group was that every advisor really should have an idea of what are the times of year that I need to be reaching out to the students that I advise. Maybe it is right before withdraw deadlines or drop deadlines. Maybe it's when they know that there's going to be registration opening up for the next semester. Those regular types of things that we should be always talking to students about. The other one was targeted communication. And that idea was more specific. So if I advise criminal justice students at Mott, and I know that Mott is doing their campus-wide criminal justice career fair, I'm going to reach out as an advisor and encourage them to attend that event. Might give them some tips on how to dress, bring resumes, make sure you stop by and say hi to me while you're here. So a very targeted communication piece. So the idea behind that was also kind of to not let a student disappear. So you are reaching out to them, they are hearing from you. It's not easy to kind of just shrink back and disappear. So that may involve some intentional phone calling too. We've got setting clear expectations. So what do you expect out of a student in terms of your advising relationship? And also, what are the expectations of your higher ed setting? What are you going to need to do to be successful here? And if it's not happening, you might have to have a candid conversation about what might need to change for a student to be successful. We have accessible, we have responsive, and Steve Segrist pointed out that it's almost, being responsive is very important, and doing it in a timely fashion is important. But if you can pull off doing it in a caring fashion, or a personalized, wow, I think this person actually cares about me, that's going to do a world of good, obviously. So sometimes it's not just information, it's actually for someone to be able to feel that you care. And then we have facilitate connections. So right back to the idea of being intentional about building a sense of community.
Comments, thoughts from the group? I can say that in that survey that we did of our students about their experience with advising, it did come through the caring attitude. Especially, some of you have hundreds of students, and some of them feel that. They feel like, well, I'm not sure he remembered which student I was. I might need to remind this advisor of who I am. And they want that sort of, no, I know who you are, Tim. I know what your last problem was, and that your, wife is working too, and you're working, whatever. So I think you were on the money there.
I think we're fine. You'll see that a lot of our answers are like a lot of the other answers already said, because there are some common sets. As an advisor, you're going to hit all these. So my question was, what are the top 5 things that need to happen for an advisor and advisee to build a strong relationship? First one is just basically get their adequate contact info. Make sure you can contact them, they can contact you if it's your cell phone, whatever the story happens to be. Next, regular communication. That could be regarding, they called you on a class, you want a response. It can be anywhere from, we're approaching the time. Have you guys signed up? Have you signed up for your classes? They're talking about closing sections, that kind of thing. Understanding their personal commitments and goals. This goes back, like you said, someone's having a baby, making them understand, in my case, that if they take a term off, they cost themselves not a term but a year, because the consequent the prereqs are not met, and it turns into a big nightmare. So definitely making sure they understand those. Their expectations and ours in terms of advisors. When you come in, don't walk in and go, what class should I take? How about you propose what classes you take? Giving them ownership, not blaming me at the end, when really it's me advising you and trying to help you, not me telling you what to do. And unfortunately, in Big Rapids in particular, my school really creates that scenario. Every advisor signs off on every check sheet, every term. So when there's a mistake at the end, whose fault is it? Well, you told me wrong. No, you also are involved in this situation. So giving them ownership. I think we all understand. We have to understand our own programs. If we can't do that, we can't really advise. And letting them understand the resources that are available. And then lastly, personally, and I think the group would agree, responsiveness is everything. If you do not respond, you lose their respect. Phone calls start going to different areas. Some people think responsiveness is 5 minutes from the time they send the email. Others think it's 2 days later, but whatever their definition is, and that's kind of under the expectation side. If you define, you send me an email within 3 days, you're going to get a response. That kind of takes care of it. That's basically what we came up with. And you'll see there's really probably nothing a lot new here. I think a lot of these are going to have some overlap.
Okay, so our question was, what are the top 5 things you can do to make a new student feel welcome? And I think this kind of varies between, whether you're in criminal justice or digital animation game design. We have different campuses and different environments that the students are in. But we did find some mutual grounds. One was giving them giveaways or t-shirts, pens, maybe candies. I know that's something that I'd like to add into my office, is having a little jar of Tootsie Rolls or something. Getting them their ID card, so again, they feel like they're part of the university. I think that goes a long way. A few things we talked about were listening to their needs. So getting to know them, what are their hobbies, and seeing if we can connect with them on a more personal level, so we can talk about things other than what they came in for, just to keep their interest. One thing that we do in DAGD is show them the classrooms. We only have 2 or 3, but it's a good idea to show them where they're going to be spending their time, so they feel comfortable in that environment. And sometimes, it's just introducing them to other students that are already in the classrooms, or letting them sit in on a class. I think building student culture is something that we're really trying to do in DAGD, because it's really important for the students to get to know each other. Another thing is giving them your business card, whether it's your personal one or your Ferris one, and then giving them your contact information, so that way they feel like they can contact you all the time. I like to give them my own business card for my website, give them some resources so they can do some learning outside of class or before they even start the program. And then the other thing is social media, pointing them to student organizations, Facebook pages, just more ways that they can feel connected. I think that's pretty much it.
Job, comments, questions, concerns? You guys did a great job. Did I? Oh gosh! You know what? I was so focused on getting the corner back there. One more group.
Well, it's because we're that mid-program kind of forgotten about in the middle of it.
Exactly.
So
I did it intentionally. Yeah.
Ours is, what are the top 5 things you need to discuss with a student who is midway through their program? And the primary question we came to immediately was, how are you doing in your plan we came up with? Are you still achieving the program? Is your macro progressing how we wanted it to? Second, have we sat down and done a graduation audit, or have you gone back to the dean's office and actually had the sign off from the people whose signatures matter more than, say, mine? Reflecting and making sure that the program still helps them towards their career goals, where they want to go. Even though they're in this program, are we sure it's still the right fit, or is there something better out there for them? How's their internship going? Or if not a formal internship, some sort of field placement or mentorship. And then how everything's coming together financially.
And I think Dan's right. That is the forgotten group often. We hit them when they're admitted. We sure hit them when they do a grad audit and they're a semester away. But that, if they're just rolling along, unless they come in to say, what class do I take? Good job.
Yeah.
On your table are some little colored dots. My gift to you this afternoon is that we are not going to use them. So you can leave them on the table for me, because believe it or not, those are kind of expensive little suckers. We were going to go through and prioritize on each list, but frankly, in looking at those lists, I think, how would you pick which of the top 5 was the most important, right? They're all important. And I think you guys did a great job, and this is awesome information to distribute, especially to new advisors. Is there anything that we missed in terms of advice you would give a new advisor that we didn't hit somewhere along the way? Cheryl Clucci.
Well, the one thing that I noticed, and maybe it
the online piece, the tutorial. That almost every student now ends up having to use Blackboard at some point. And I know when I'm talking to a student, why don't you go out and just do that?
So she's talking about the tutorial, and I want to tell you, when we say online orientation, there are two, and students get confused, and we get confused. There's a new student orientation, which is delivered online. They're both orientations are delivered online. One's intended for new students, covers all the stuff that's in the packet you have, FAFSA, how to register for classes, how to figure out who your advisor is, all that good stuff. We expect new students to do that. They don't all yet. There's also an orientation for students who are going to take an online class. That's 80% of the courses require that to be completed before you can register for an online class. So sometimes that's also called an online tutorial or online orientation, but it is a different program. They can access it off the online website, ferris.edu/online. Takes an hour. It's not onerous. Dawn?
Well, the other thing I would suggest to a new advisor, is go out and do some of those things that you're going to expect a student to do because, for example, the new application that Casey was showing you, the experience that you will get, you will understand what a student has to go through. Just even glancing at the tutorial videos for financial aid to get a concept of what does a student's knowledge need to be. Doing the online readiness orientation or the new student orientation. Again, those are things that you're going to point out to your student, but I think as a new advisor, going through those yourself gives you a better perspective as you help to advise a student.
I'd recommend any new advisor to find a mentor who is an advisor. I was very fortunate to be the office next to John Backstrom, and if there was something I had even a little tiny question about, I'd run over to him and ask him questions. I still call him in Arizona and say, I'm stuck on this one, what do you think? And he's more than willing to help. So I'd say find a mentor and don't be afraid to say, I don't know, and let me get back to you.
Awesome suggestion.
Figure out how you're going to document conversations on the phone and I made this the first year. I mean, I'll remember, and I'd write a short note. Finally, whatever your system is, some use the computer system, John used to use paper system. Every time you have a conversation, what did you tell them? Because guaranteed when you come back in 3 weeks or 3 months, you got 900 people in between and you don't remember what you told them, and guaranteed what they want is the easiest route. And you don't remember, did you actually tell them that or not? At least I didn't, so.
Good suggestion. You know, one of the, not to plug my degree, but one of the cool things about my degree is you can put a comment out there that both you and the student see. And so, you know, John says he's going to sign up for Math 110 this fall to be ready for, at least it's a reminder.
As the provost said, everyone will use my degree. This is the official check sheet, and that's just the way it is.
I don't know.
You know, it seems to me he could make this all happen if he wanted to.
Well, the other thing where the comment section, and I agree with you, Deb, where the comment section in self-serve banner is helpful. For example, when Katie has met with a student and she puts down maybe a course she recommended, when Amanda goes to register a student, that's really helpful for her to see so that she can be on the same page. Or if that student walked in and said, Katie told me to take some class, can you help me figure out? We have that. And so that comment section, I think, if I can encourage online, again, to be very careful what you put on the comment section, but some of that information is really helpful for others that interact with your students as well.
And I don't have the answer to your question about
here's my
how we're going with my degree.
That works for me.
Sure.
And I could switch to my degree, but I'm still not convinced, and until I'm forced into one or the other, I probably won't change what I'm doing, to be quite frank. And I'm just wondering, you know, what is the story? If he's going to force it down my throat, yeah, I'm going to learn it early, and I'm going to drive. Right now I have a working system, and I'm busy as it is.
Does anyone know what the plan is? Cheryl, is there a direction from academic affairs about the use of my degree?
The transfer center had come to them to recommend that they have somebody scribe. They hire a scribe because that's the biggest issue is a lot of things aren't scribed yet. And until they do that, I don't think they can just say this is what's going to happen because they don't put the resources to be able to scribe it.
I can tell you off campus, we have some pockets that we want to go after. I want to go after BizAd and BizAd ProTrack because I think it's an awesome tool. If we can figure out how to make it work. Personally, in the online environment, we're rolling out automotive management. And I think what a great time to try and figure that one out. Maria, did you have your hand up?
Well, CJ is all scribed. All of our locations are all scribed, but it's still not working up to par. So I'm not sure exactly.
I think it would be good to, I hate to throw her into the mix. Sorry. But Katie or Dee Dee or someone, because I think they found some workarounds that maybe you could use as well.
Because we're all set up, we're just not, we went through and scribed absolutely every course of everything, but it's still not.
What do you mean by that?
We met with Jim Lindsay and went.
So when you say it's not working, what isn't working?
What isn't working?
Different, when it comes across, like for starters, macro, and it doesn't fill in.
Macro's not gonna fill in. You
Right.
always gotta force complete that. So you gotta find out who in your college is the champion, the my degree champion to do that for you. Because they can't make macro fill in everything because what macro completes in my college is different than what it completes in yours. So they can't make a standard exception across the board. So that's macro, if someone has a previous bachelor's degree, that's something that's always got to be or manually completed.
But it can be, as a student's admitted, somebody can go through and go, yeah, make that macro, complete these courses.
It takes just as much time to do that than to do your check sheet. So like when I get a new student now that instead of going and pulling up this Excel spreadsheet and looking at Banner and basically all you're really doing is transposing information onto a spreadsheet. So you're kind of doing extra work. When it's already in my degree, then what you're sort of looking for is those exceptions. So then you're just asking, okay, so it's taking that little bit of time and you're like, okay, they do have macro, nope, this is a CE or, a few little things.
Can I do that?
No.
Because
I can't
all
either.
the advisors send me the check sheet. And then when what I'm thinking is when I get that, then I can go, I don't know why I would have
I think that would be a discussion you would have to have with whoever has the authority
Michelle
to
Richardson.
give permission.
Everybody across campus has different access to macro, or to my degree, excuse me. There's different levels of access. I think there's 6 different levels of access for my degree. So most advisors have what's called the general advisor, or what they call the ADV ability, which means you only have access or can only access my degree that is your students that you advise for. And then there are other ones for dean secretaries and program coordinators and department heads and all of that stuff. So if you have general authority to make exceptions for your college, then maybe what you need to do is just ask your director of student academic affairs or whatever to get you further access than what you need, or than what you currently have. So that's why I said you'll have to figure out who in your college is your my degree champion.
I would go to Michelle and who's the?
Because I think
David. Talk
Go
with
to
David.
Daryl.
Yeah.
And
I think I
have
got
a
that
discussion.
access when we were doing
Yeah, have a discussion.
Yeah.
Shall I call him Mary?
Yeah.
David, Mary?
Mary too?
We sort of have next, because I got you out of one of the exercises. Next on the agenda is really sort of an open discussion, an open forum. I do want to take the opportunity to share a little bit of information with you. You know we did a survey of students, and we surveyed some advisors, and just had some discussions about overall in the advising experience, if you will, what's working, what do we need to change, etc. We took, as a team, we took those recommendations, and there were many, and we tried to narrow in on what are some of the key ones that we could do first. This meeting was one of the very first ones. Recommended by some of the advisors that getting together, sharing information, I think your idea of a mentor is awesome. And part of what we hope comes out of today is knowing some of your peers and others who are becoming experts and who can help you figure out macro or figure out how my degree works, etc. So this advisor retreat, Tracy did an awesome job, and so let's give her a round. And she'll say we all helped, Dawn and Jocelyn, and so there were more, but she gets kudos too. Doug?
Just one thing, I was looking at my advisee list in my FSU, and I see there is a nice button down at the bottom for you able to select and email them all. But one of the things, if you're doing some recommendations, can you put the campus that these students are registered at and the email list by campus, or all of my advisees or advisees by campus location, so that I can email them reminding them I'm coming up to this campus on this day, set your schedule now with me, or something like that would be very, very, very handy.
And is it on this? Yeah, develop email list of all advisees for advisors to use. Doug just said, you know, in my FSU, there's a little button I can get to all of my advisees. It's not really. Is it just, I forget what the subset is. Is it just currently registered?
Yes.
Or, so the guy, you know, the students who maybe were just admitted or who were admitted a year, you know, a semester ago and haven't taken a class, they're not on that list. So in terms of things that we know we need for you is a way to get to all your students. And I think it's great to also be able to find a way to parse that out by campus or whatever. So we'll add that in. At the bottom in red, we have fixed advisee lists. We did, with Casey's help, go through all of the students for off-campus and try and match up the correct advisor. So if you see on your advisee list, you still have people that maybe aren't your program or are wrong, please let us know. We'll fix them as soon as we can, which doesn't take long. But we did spend some time trying to get them right. They're assigned when they're admitted. And so sometimes what happens is there's a program change and it doesn't get caught or something like that. So there is room for human error. We do have on our recommendations, implement my degree where possible, because just having seen the power of it, if we can find ways to make it work, I think it's better for the student and it's better for the advisor. The other nice thing is you are able to sometimes, I think, share information with the student a little easier that way, because you can both access it. So. One suggestion was, we talked about the communication plan and you talked about touching base with the students. However, recognizing sometimes it just, maybe not you guys, but me, it takes a while to craft an email that sort of has the right tone and sounds great. And you know, by the time I think of that, then I've got 18 other things to do. So we have Dawn, who's going to hopefully help orchestrate being able to craft sort of some generic template emails that you could use and tweak to your heart's content if you want to put in additional information or you like different kind of tone or wording. But at least give you the basics, the bones of it, so that if you want to remind students about something coming up or, hey, my advising date, we can have the template for you.
Part of that too is, sure, we could send that all out for you, but this is another way we would like you to be able to connect with your advisee and have them feel that you really care about them, and it comes through better if it's from you. Plus, if it comes through one of us, they're not going to know who we are, and they may just delete it, where they're gonna know who Maggie Edwards is. Oh, she's my advisor, or she's my instructor, I better look at that email. And so we really wanted it to come from you as advisors instead of just a central office email address. Right, that's true.
Yeah, and that's a good point. They can reply back and get directly to you. So develop those email lists for you as well. We talked about the advisor postcard a little bit today, so just another way to communicate with the student who you are and why they want to connect with you. Salesforce, we think, is going to be a powerful software tool for us to be able to standardize some communication. One thing that's kind of cool about it is once you go in, I can look up for a student. Let's say they said, so how many in here have had a student come in and say, I got an email from Ferris? And you have no idea what it says, right?
Yes.
Well, if it came out of Salesforce, you can actually pull it up and see the exact email they got. So while not all Ferris communication is going to go through there, financially, probably, I don't know if it will or not, but we're going to try and funnel as much as we can through there so that we can see what they got. Some advisor, yeah, Katie.
Tim, as you guys are building Salesforce and stuff, I think some of I know you want us as advisors, and I appreciate that too, but to really be kind of that face of Ferris. But I think what I have a difficult time with sometimes is that I do become that face, and so now I get financial aid, and I get the bookstore, and where do I park my car, and all those things that are in the pad folio. But I think sometimes if we're going to use Salesforce, maybe having some of those quick general emails that would maybe take the pressure off a little bit of advisors so that we can focus on advising. But those general questions, I spend a good portion of my time answering, and it'd be nice to have those follow-ups if Salesforce can do that, to be able to shoot it out and make it happen.
Yep, actually, and maybe what we include is something that says, hey, don't forget registration opens, and here's the number you call of the regional office to register, or you can do it online, but try and direct them to the right person so you don't get every phone call. As you have suggestions like that moving forward, please let us know. There are some advisors have pretty unbearable loads because we've grown. We haven't necessarily shifted things. We do try and keep an eye on it, but it doesn't always even out. So we are looking at that and trying to figure out what kind of load is feasible where you can still do a good job, and it's more than 5. But where is that level, and at what point do we need to add new advisors or shift things around a little bit? So we are looking at that. We talked about comments, and we talked about there's Space Mountain, or what you see in self-serve banner as comments space. There's My Degree comments. We would like to, we think it would be good long-term if we could get some consistency, get a group of advisors that can determine, this kind of comment, they go here, or that kind of comment goes on this other screen. Some way of knowing across the board, if I want to know what an advisor said the student should take, here's where I would look. Because right now, I don't know where to look. And believe it or not, if you're on vacation, those phone calls do come to the rest of us, and then we're floundering, especially if, God love you, Joe, but if it's in paperwork, I'll never find it, right? So you'll be answering it when you get it.
I think that ties back to what Katie was saying too, about she gets phone calls for everything. Well, sometimes we can answer an advising question if you have the comment in there that I told them to take this, because they'll show up at the office and we're like, ooh, I don't know what they told you to take, you're going to have to contact them. But if it's right there in the comments, we can bring it up and say, well, according to this, Katie told you on such and such a date that you need to take this, this, and this. And we can help you with that. So, if you do have those out there so we can access it, we can help you do your job and not refer them back to you.
And we're more than happy to.
And we're more than happy to.
Justin.
Kind of going back to the level of
for advisees, advisors, and we
Yes.
talked about it in the past and stuff. The students in that survey that you shared with us, some really felt like they were just in and rushed out. And so we're really trying to get the most students with these half-hour appointments, but literally, Steve takes a good hour, you know,
Steve talks,
close.
I'm telling you.
You know, so, but he does, he
He's
builds
got
that
a lot to
relationship.
say.
Yeah, he builds that relationship, so that's where we kind of have to find that.
There
as
is,
well.
in Appointments Plus, I think there is an option, if we know, Steve Segrist always wants an hour. Right now, when a student goes in to make an appointment, they select the location first, and then the advisor, and then it says appointments 30 minutes, appointments 45 minutes, whatever. So one problem, they don't know they're gonna need an hour. But if Steve is always gonna need an hour, then we don't have a 30. I'm gonna pick on you.
He doesn't always take an hour, but.
Well, then he gets a break if not.
Yeah.
So there are some options. I think, we're also looking at, although I think Appointments Plus has worked great in that students make their own appointments a lot now. We are looking at other products that would connect with our other calendar and email system so that things could sync. I'm not promising anything, I'm just saying looking at.
Jen called it Time Trader.
Time Trader?
Time Trader is the program that she's looking at.
So we recognize some of the limitations of what we have already, but gosh, it's a lot farther along than we used to be, right?
And I think there's a new system gonna be coming on. I just heard Jennifer Hagenauer say.
That's just what I said, didn't I? Which system? Huh?
With the appointment.
Right.
I think one of the things we.
She probably thought I was talking about the Lotus Notes software, because that's also gonna change.
And we knew that was a concern, and we have been looking at that, but part of it is in 6 months, we're gonna have a new email system, so there's no sense in changing the system now, that even if it does work with Lotus Notes, when we have to turn around and change it again in 6 months. So I think it's just looking at something that will work with Office 365 that we're moving to.
And Salesforce, right?
And Salesforce.
And Salesforce, yes.
Wouldn't that be cool, just everything all syncing up?
And Banner.
And Banner. You can't go crazy, is what you. Yeah, Sherry.
From my perspective, I wish there were a better way to digitally attach documents to the student accounts instead of having to maintain paper files and everything. Because when we have to share things on our students, sometimes they get lost or misplaced, or you're tracking stuff down. And I mean, if we could scan into Extender or something, so I can look up and say, oh, this advisor met with this student, and here's what they discussed, and here's how they altered their schedule or check sheet or whatever the case may be. So that whole digital thing is a big one for me.
Like what Katie said, that's sort of what the My Degree is for. But for you, for like all your education stuff, that's
It's
where
different, like we're
more like
paper, too
that
paper
would be
heavy,
nice for you
in
to
my
have.
opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. Way too paper
And
heavy.
it's not that it's not feasible, I think
It
it's
is
more
feasible.
policy and procedure stuff that we have to work through. So that's a good one to add. Some of you, not all of you, but some of you have asked for that access to SATMs, the banner screen, internet native banner that tells you the application status. So that's where Dawn talked about getting the forms from you. It's not a requirement by any means that you have that, because again, our staff is willing to help you, and hopefully the new, when it's linked to Salesforce, students can see for themselves. But for those of you who want it, certainly we'll try and help you get it. We've talked about, and I don't know your feeling on this, because I think some advisors are open, others said, heck no. But we were trying to figure out, how do you encourage or require new students to meet with their advisor? So we talked about, do you put an advising hold on them, right, when they're admitted? I sort of hate that, because, yeah, one more thing to stop them from registering. But, maybe that's something that you want us to consider.
I mean, I'll speak up on that one. I like, I think it was Joe's comment earlier, where, I want to be there to help the students, but I feel like the students come to too many advising sessions, and they say, I don't know what to take, what class do I need to take? That always just blows me away, because it's on the check sheet, you know? Asking me when classes are offered, or what I recommend they take based on where they're at, how they, I mean, yeah, that's great advising, but not knowing at all what they should take is a problem, and I feel like they've become way too dependent on something.
So it'd be
So I
great
want
to
to
have a
discourage that
conversation about
dependency.
how do we both assist them and transition them into these students who are empowered.
They should know, right? It's in the catalog, it's on the program sheet, knock them off.
Something we started doing about 3 or 4 years ago at Digital Animation Game Design is right after classes open for registration in March, we have a massive freshman advising jam. We get together in the auditorium, parents come, advisees come, and really it comes down to take these 4 classes and take a couple of these gen eds over to community college. So the actual advising is pretty simple. And then what we do is we split off into different labs with your advisees. And we actually had them go through MyFSU if they can, if they've already done this already. They sign up right online, and we probably get 30% of the classes, 30% of people finally commit to say, yes, I'll take these classes. But at least they've met us, they've met some of their peers. It's kind of a really community building event, and it also just gets the whole process moving. So I think that's been a very successful part on our part. You guys may want to think about.
I use advising holds for all of my new students. For HITM and HCSA, they have to attend one mandatory group advising session. I tell them it's their first and only. And so they attend, and it's about an hour long, and I go through registration and advising and consortium and where you park your car and where you get your books, and just go through all of that, and then they're good to go to register.
You put a hold on?
I put a hold on them until they attend, and then I keep sending out emails, here are my dates, here are my dates, here are my dates. So,
Is there anybody else that feels like they've got ideas that where they've been successful at sort of transitioning that student who needs a lot of hand-holding into one that's sort of self-sufficient?
I think it's kind of like what Dawn said, and I was just talking about it, where I've tried to get more of, and when you get more students and things, I think you have to force yourself to stop helping so much, but answering the question, but then giving them the tool to say, this is where you find it next time. Here's the link, or, a lot of times it's a link, or here's where you go to look up transfer classes. I'm not going to send you a list of every cultural enrichment class at Delta, because that you can find that yourself, So I think it's just doing that is nicely helping, but saying, or, the one with, what do I take, and I know Katie does this a lot. Well, you made your plan in Nursing 320, so why don't we go back and you look, and then sort of not answering it, but telling them, this is where you can find it. You chose those classes, when you made your plan. So what did it say for this semester? And go pick. So you still have to kind of do some of it, but hopefully, once you work on them once, that one kind
And
of
truthfully,
works.
some of those tools are not easy to find.
No.
Transfer equivalencies. Unless you sort of knew who would go to transfer services, scroll down, transfer equivalencies.
Yeah, some of our tools are not intuitive either, like our check sheets. I'm surprised at how many students they don't understand the check sheets. So my first appointment, I spent time with them explaining to them, here's your Ferris requirements, here's the GRCC course equivalent. In parentheses, we have prerequisites. This is a 21 credit concentration. This is what a directed elective is. And so we spend some time doing that, at least the first time. And that would be a great thing to cover in an orientation as well.
Good. Good suggestions. We are working on that new student orientation and making it mandatory. We struggled with that, I think, within EIO and the whole concept of something being mandatory, but really feel the benefits of it outweigh that sort of onus on the student. So I know we've got a team working on that. There's some folks also thinking about how can we, some of you who travel a lot have more problems in adding in days and times because there are only so many days in a week. So how can we better use phone advising or Adobe Connect or whatever technology that we might have to still be able to work with the students, still build a relationship, but maybe do it in a more efficient manner. So we're looking at that. Carrie?
I do use a lot of phone advising. I use it quite often, and it works really well. It's there on the webpage, but I do want to look into Adobe Connect. That'd be very exciting, an opportunity for you to talk to the student, have a conversation, but then point out the things that you need to show them.
Yeah, you can share the documents. And if you really want to be fancy, you can have a webcam on so they can see you.
No.
Scared.
You're doing yours in your pajamas. Come on.
My sweats.
There was a...
Taking this 122.
In terms of online programs, we have a specific issue about students who are in online programs. And we have not figured out the answer to this. So for all these great brains in this room, we're hoping someone has an epiphany and comes forward with the answer. Many of you might not know that most of our students in online programs actually live within 50 miles of one of our regional campuses currently, for the in-state students. And that sort of makes sense because we don't really market, so how are they going to know about our programs? They live near urban center. So, but the whole question of who should advise that student or who can assist that student keeps coming up. So if there's a student that comes in the Flint office and they're a biz ad student, but they're going to take the online program, is that the online program's advisor? Is that the Flint biz ad advisor? Can both work with the student? If both can work with the student, how do we share those comments and information? And we continue to struggle with that. It also, who does the consortium form? What program are they admitted to? Should we admit them to the Traverse City student? Should we admit them to the NT campus, the Traverse City campus? Do we admit them to the online campus? Why does it matter? Because some of our reports say who's doing what. Really, we only look at, go figure, we look at who's in courses. What courses are they in? But we use that campus code for other things like financial aid, figuring out what consortium form to give them, that kind of thing. So we, I think, continue to struggle. Right now, it's sort of a flip of the coin. Some are in a campus location, some are in an online program. Cheryl, is there anything else about that issue that?
Well, and it just depends on how they apply. I'm looking at Dan Turio because he's doing advising at Montcalm for business. Well, we have some students that apply to the online program because we do not offer any courses at Montcalm. But we also have some that apply for biz ad at Montcalm. It's still Dan, regardless, but if they applied as online, is Dion going to come up as the advisor because it's an online? I know Peter does Scottville, and it's the same thing.
And it does matter because Dan travels to Montcalm to meet students. But Dion's not going to travel over there. So if the student just happens to apply to the online program, they aren't going to get the communication about, oh, by the way, I'm coming next Tuesday if you want to meet. Does that make sense?
Well,
Got a couple of, go ahead.
Sorry. There's another issue from the student perspective, at least what we're encountering is that there's some departments that will refuse to allow students to register for online classes if the location is offering that same class. And so for the online students in Northern Michigan, it's to their advantage to be an online student because there's certain classes they couldn't register for.
You know what's interesting? There was even a Big Rapids student, it's an adult student, in a Big Rapids program, but she transferred into the online because she couldn't get in the online classes, and she worked during all the class times, so she had to take it online.
But what is starting to happen now, in that to the students, so you have to be careful with the program changes doing that, is the online classes are full. So they're better off taking it at that location because they're gonna do a program change, come to me, ready to register, like now, sorry, there's nothing for you to take, so it sometimes works, I guess, if you do it early enough, if that's what they have to do, but.
Sherry, you had a comment?
I guess my concern for like the locations is, I mean, I hate to say it, but that money distribution too for advising, and if you have somebody who's traveling, but if they're online, and then online money goes somewhere else, and then who's paying the person's salaries to do the advising and do the traveling and.
The way the financials work, and I think some know and some don't, the way the financials work in EIO is if we get tuition money from courses that are delivered at our regional campuses. So if a student signs up and takes Justin's mixed delivery Lansing class, that tuition money goes to EIO to pay salaries and so forth. Classroom rental, everything else. If it's in, and yes, thanks Janelle, some goes back to the college at the end as incentive payments. If it's an online class, that goes to the general fund somewhere. That's that. That was the end of that sentence. But it doesn't matter what campus they're admitted to, it's really what classes they take.
I guess I look at it like this. If you look at it from the student's perspective, putting the student first, I would think we would want to treat them like we treat anyone else in the program. And, you know, there's Skype. You know, I don't have to meet with them physically necessarily. I mean, I can Skype with them, we can see each other.
I'm
To me,
advising
it seems
students
silly
on
to route them somewhere
three
else.
different continents
Yep.
regularly.
So I don't know why we would treat them differently if they're registered for online version of the program versus a regular version. That's just Jerry Emmerich's view of the world.
What would be different on 15 days or?
You guys gotta figure out the money outside of the student's
Yeah,
concern.
okay, well, Dan.
The one thought I was gonna share is it is helpful to know, for instance, if we took the example of Montcalm or Scottville, if I've got 30 students in that area that all need this course, now I can start talking to Cheryl about, do we wanna see if we can get our 15 to 20 to fill a classroom? And then the other is, you know, long-term dream visionary, and I'm sure some will roll their eyes. But think about, you know, banking branches. I can go into any Fifth Third and get my account balance and get the service I need at that branch. And in an ideal world, we'll be able to get more of these systems electronic where if I'm traveling and I'm vacationing in Traverse and I find out I need to register or I need to sit down or I need to get a transcript, trying to make as many of these services, including advising, a little more broad.
And it really goes back to what Jerry said, which is my favorite statement of today, looking at it from the student's perspective. So, gold star.
Ah, shucks.
Oh,
Jerry.
Here, get on my desk.
I don't think I got anything for it. Oh, I do get this wrapper.
Other things that you want to bring up for the good of the order, while you're all captive. That,
Well, and I've got this probably even bigger question on Concur. Why do two people off campus need to approve? If somebody like Janelle is approving it, does a second person after Janelle have to check on Janelle to make sure she approves it too?
yeah, because she's not very good.
A lot of checking up on it.
Or, you know, in the same way, and it's even worse on campus because I have 3 people approving it, 2 of which are in the same office.
I know, I can't.
It's crazy. I don't care if the
Cheryl
other
may be
person
able-
gets a second report, but why do we have so many
Sometimes,
approvals?
again, it depends. I know the first approver typically is just a second set of eyes, you know, making sure everything's kosher with what accounting would want. The second approver is often whoever's in charge of that budget. So if you're charging my budget, I want to be able to approve that I'm paying that out of that budget code. So that's often the second. I know sometimes when I do things, I have to have a third and fourth because it's actually paid by the VP's office. Or if you're visiting to 3 different locations, that may be 3 different budgets you're hitting.
Your department has wants to approve. And then we have a person, Covita, is our she looks at it to make sure in our office that everything that
See,
we
and I don't
require.
understand if it's not our department, if it's EIO funded. He can look at it, I don't care, and the dean also has to, why do we have a dean that is spending so much time approving
That's-
travel that's already budgeted
That's
out to
just
these?
your college.
I think each college
That's
sort
your
of
college.
determines their own.
Micromanagement, you know, I just, to try and simplify
I hear
it,
your
just,
pain.
you know,
Yeah.
you know.
I just got a big fat secret. I was told to try and charge everything to your programs. So, I mean, so, just so you know
I don't think
that.
that's a secret, Sharon.
We all know that.
But that wasn't the dean, so.
At least I have the approval check flow
So when you
memorized for
disapprove,
you.
I don't wanna be humiliated.
It's not a secret anymore, Sharon, because this is all being recorded, yes.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, now you're on tape.
Might wanna talk to him about editing that too.
Other concerns, issues that I can't answer? Tracy, did we miss anything you wanted to cover today?
Just a question piggybacking, and it kind of stems off of what I was saying earlier and asking, and I know funding and stuff and all that. I mean, it all factors in because it helps us determine our students, but how do we handle if the students traveling around and they happen to be near a location? Can they go to that location and get assistance and help and so that advisor, but then how does that communication? And it ties in with the digital piece too, or my degree, or however we approach it. How does that get communicated back so that everyone is on the same page?
Well, and I guess I should say, I was answering from the standpoint of the regional office in terms of, can we help them get registered and figure out what they're doing in my FSU or their FAFSA form, all of that. I think any of our offices would be more than happy to help a student. In terms of the advising and what classes do you take, that's up to you guys. I don't know.
We had a student that came into Delta the other day that's music industry management, and she is back at Delta. She's been academically dismissed, so she's gonna stay at Delta, but wants to make sure that the 12 credits she takes to try to get back in the program will apply to the program. So we pulled, actually I used my degree, which I barely ever use. So we kind of did a little bit of work on that. We figured out what she could still take. I felt fairly good about it, but I emailed her, Lori Armstrong, who is her actual academic advisor, her faculty advisor, to fill her in. And she actually had 1 or 2 suggestions as well, so that worked.
Who do we talk to broaden our view in my degree so that when we get other students from our program that are assigned to other advisors while they're out or whatever, where we can view their information? Who's the contact for that?
I don't know. Do you know?
Is
Well,
that-
I don't know who the My Degree users and.
Well,
You should,
Is it
I
Deb
think any
Cox?
advisor can pull, I can pull up Dion's advisees
Oh,
in
okay, I
my
thought I heard
degree,
something.
so you can,
I think you can't change,
you can't change.
if it's somebody else's advisee, you might not be able to enter
Perfect.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought I heard something different today.
For us, the public business carry.
Okay,
Does everyone,
go ahead.
does everyone know what my degree looks like?
no.
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yeah.
Deb, can I use the computer?
Have at it. Do you want me to bring it up? Here, I'll pass around extra candy in case somebody needs it. Feel free to pass it around.
I mean, I'm glad she doesn't, she wants me. But it seems to me, I can
I know.
While Katie's getting ready and pulling up some information, does everybody bring their business cards for Cynthia? Do you have any that we still need to get to her? Right. 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 Any more business cards for Cynthia?
Because they can check their sheet and assume they're doing it right. It's not what my degree says, but really it's not the right advice. You know, and that's my concern. I want to find out how Kate feels about it.
Well, the part of it, you gotta remember,
Sometimes I think I'm just being honest. That I talk to you and other people I know are kind of holding up kind of the same reason.
well, part of it though is her
We'll say what they say, what did you bring me up?
Right, right.
Okay, we talked a lot about my degree, and for those of you who don't know, and I explained this on Tuesday when I was at the new advisor workshop that we did on main campus. My degree, and I think this is where sometimes folks keep saying too, it doesn't work. My degree is intended to reflect Ferris State University degree requirements. So it's not meant to be a transfer guide. So you're not going to see in there the English class that's relevant to English 150 at Mott Community College, because that's not what the intention of my degree is. My degree is to reflect the requirements it takes to get a degree from Ferris State University in whatever a student's major is. This is what my degree looks like. Keith Tester is our model student in the system. He's the one that I use for all my training sessions because he doesn't violate FERPA. He is very smart because he is in every degree level that Ferris has here. He's in the master's, bachelor's, and an associate's degree. So I use him a lot when I do my group advising. But what it does is it does go through and allows the student to see and for you to see what requirements that student has left to complete. So the legend is really important for both you and the student to know. So a green box with the check, that requirement has been met. Nothing in the box that needs to be completed. The student's registered for a class, they'll see this box here with the blue swiggle in it. For those of you who are talking about macro and how my degree doesn't work with macro, when we go into the system and we force the system to meet that requirement for macro, students see this here, this box, the box with the two swiggles or tildes or whatever you want to call them in it. And I always tell my students, when you see that mark, it'll keep showing that you need 3 credits in that requirement. That is a sign to you that that requirement has been met. It's a sign to me that I flagged the system and it didn't like it. So that's how we've been able to get around macro for them. My degree then goes on to explain to the students what is needed for that degree. So if I move, I'm going to change to the bachelor's because it's a little better. So if I move down, I can see that to get a bachelor's degree from Ferris, a student needs 30 credits from Ferris that he has of his 120 that are still, or 131 over here, needed to complete his degree. He still has 33 to complete. And it goes on to say that he needs 40 credits at a 300 to 400 level, along with his GPA, his freshman seminar, his general education, global race and ethnicity, and his major. And what it does even further, which is what I love, is it then takes each of these categories at the top and breaks it down further. Here's communications. For general education, a student needs communications, science, quantitative skills, cultural enrichment, social awareness. So what does each of these mean? It breaks it down further for them. They need speech, English 1 and 2, advanced comp.
If they come in with macro, would those be checked?
It would. These ones would not. With macro, what you will see most common macro completing and see it on here is global consciousness, race, ethnicity, and gender. And then the college guru of your college would have to come in and make an exception to that. So I'm one of those gurus in the College of Health profession. So if you wanted speech for macro, the student has macro and you waive speech as the guru for the college, I would have to come in here and mark that off for you and you would see that. But
Does the guru also have to identify, or the advisor, whoever, have to identify what's going to come in as 300 level and change those numbers?
No,
It does do that.
It does do that. So if, for example, GRCC, if a student took Philosophy 206 over there, when it comes to Ferris, it comes in as Philosophy 320. It's on there, and up at the top, it'll show that the student has 3 credits of upper division. So it does. The only thing that it really doesn't do with transfer credits is macro. And that's because there was not a clear consensus across the campus, across the Ferris University, that what macro means. So, you know, my degree works best when you have all the rules the same across the board. So, couple of neat features that I like about my degree, which doesn't necessarily help so much for gen ed, but for major, a student could scroll down on your major and click on any course, and a pop-up will come up. It tells what the description of the course, when it's typically offered, and if in the next couple of semesters it's going to be offered, it's going to show you that. Students cannot register off of my degree, but at least gives them something to play with. A lot of times, you know, I said that my degree is not a transfer guide, but I work with a lot of students who go to GRCC and they want to know what can they take at GRCC. I use notes here, and I add a note and I just say, students should work with GRCC to earn macro. Included in macro, they should take this, 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 and this, and in addition, they should take these courses. And I save it, and students can see it, I can see it, and I know what I told them.
Katie, how are you handling? I see macro comes in. I go in and I say, all right, for me, both Englishes count, but I require speech, so if they didn't take speech as part of their, so that doesn't stay checked.
It doesn't stay checked.
How do you deal with, they bring in some credits, we count, 3 of them count, 2 count for social, 1 counts for cultural, so they'll show up on the system as completed. How do you deal with the remainder if they're going to go through macro to do that? Because you're telling them they have to take all of this for the Ferris requirement, but the macro is the GRCC courses that I could see if there was a box that said seeking macro for the cultural and social, and I just clicked on it and said, it's not completed, the requirements are you to work out with GRCC. Are you getting misdirection out of what Ferris is telling them here and what?
No, because that's why I put it in notes. Students should work with GRCC to earn the macro stamp, which will which will waive this, 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 and this. And these are the courses they should build into that.
You're actually identifying the GRCC courses also for macro?
Yep, that they should include in macro that they need for my degree.
Oh. But not what they need to get.
Right. I say they need to work with an advisor there. Yep. And what I do is when I admit a new student, or when a new student is admitted, I send them a welcome email with their degree audit. And in the Word document, I have like a whole page and a half of standard phrases that I use in this. And I just copy and paste it in there. And that way I don't have to retype everything all the time. And then when I get everything set up and I send the welcome email to the student, instead of me sending a check sheet like many of you, I just click Save as a PDF. I save the PDF, that's what gets sent off to my students. Is that what you do, Dion?
So from a student's perspective, if I'm looking at this and I'm trying to figure out what courses to take at the community college, I can look at the Ferris requirements, and I could probably look at these new transfer plans that are coming out and say, okay, I need, Soc 340 at Ferris. Oh, look, on the transfer plan, that's Soc 121 at mine.
Yep. Can do that, or if the advisor wanted to write that in the bottom, in the notes. Yep.
Awesome.
And when I send this, because I know that this is overwhelming to look at, when you first look at it, it's frightening. There's no doubt about it, which is the same way that happened with our old check sheets that we had in Excel too. So I have a little cheat sheet of how to read your guide. And it's box by box, exactly what I just went through with you guys. And I send that out to the student, and I had an interesting conversation with an advisor in arts and sciences. I didn't think anyone ever read the how-to guide, and she's like, yeah, my friend just got an email from you, and she loves that. So I know someone at least listened, or at least read it. So But my degree, it may not work for everyone. I don't know what situation all of you are in, but what we found in the College of Health Professions, which has really made me a believer, and it sounds like maybe Dion, is that it changes how I advise. Anyone, you guys are talking, Dawn was talking about, what did Katie, tell you? Go to their plan. That's what I told them, whatever was in their planner in my degree. That's where I put it. That way Dion can see it, Dawn can see it, front desk can see it, everyone can see it.
Could you give us all a glimpse of that plan? That's
Sure. Did you have a question too?
It might pertain, because I was going to ask if you, can you do course sequences in here?
Yes, awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, it's
See, the converts are really clever.
Go ahead and stand up.
So this is the planner tab in my FSU, and so you can build, in this case, this is Keith's bachelor plan, but you come over and, you can choose in fall, he's going to take communications. If you're a mouse person, you can just click on the course and drag it over and plop it in there, and I love that aspect because it brings the credits over, and I don't need to know how many credits that course is. If you like to type, you can type in here, whatever course you want. If you wanted to tell a student in fall semester, you need to take a course at, Mott Community College, you can put Mott's equivalency in here by using the minus sign and then putting whatever their course is, English, 101 at MCC, and I do that a lot for the JRCC students. That way it counts in there, and that's where I'm getting my transfer stuff in. And it'll save it as long as the minus sign is there.
Show them the other thing that is cool that you can do is you can build, not for just an individual student, but you can build, like if you have a cohort, or something, and you can just go select that plan and it just populates. So they have to take these 2 classes in fall, they have to take these 2 classes in spring, and every student in that program has to do that. So a new student gets admitted, that plan's already saved somewhere, so you don't have to do this every time,
And that's called a template, and you can build templates in my degree, and I've built a couple in here. Let me see here. You can see, just built one the other day. So here are a couple of examples of all the Bachelor of Science ones that are out there. And here's nuclear medicine with a false start. If I just click on that and scroll down to the bottom and load in the plan, it has all of those courses already in there. I don't have to go out and retype the same plan for 16 students. I can adjust that plan. Let's say Johnny didn't take FSUS 100. I can take that out, but I don't have to sit there and retype it.
So your terminology so far in doing this has been, I can do this. But you have the students do this as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's an assignment in our Nursing 320 class that they build their own personalized education plan here. They have to go into the planner, figure out what they still have left, and it's an assignment. They get a grade on it. I go in as an advisor after they've completed the assignment, make sure that they've met all the requirements. If they didn't, I email the student and say, your plan, let's talk about that. You didn't do this, or yes, your plan looks really great. Congratulations. Looks like we're on track. And then they'll email me and say, I had to change it a little bit. That's fine. Go in, fix what you need, what you're going to change, and then I'll go out and check it and make sure it's okay. And so many students have done that in group advising for HCSA, HIM, and HIT. I give them a list of when courses are offered down here. They build their plan, and I email them and say, looks good, go register for the fall semester. And we have a few students who haven't done that yet, so I made a deal with one of the professors to do it in the entry-level class this fall. So.
Does it notify you if a student goes in and makes their own changes?
It won't notify you, no. Now, you as an advisor, which is what I do with my cohorts, I lock the plan so they can't change it. So I can go in and lock the plan, and the only person that can change it is me. So even if Dion wanted to go out there, she can't because I'm the one that authorized the lock. They can build a new plan up here, if they're savvy, and I've had students who have 4 plans in here because they keep changing their mind and they don't know that they can just keep fixing the plan. But the other neat feature about my degree is, as an advisor, once you save the plan, there's this plan versus taken that you can go out and say, okay, oops, this one, here we go. I can do plan versus taken, and it'll tell me what I planned for the student to take as an advisor and what he or she has taken. And if they didn't follow what I planned, then, you can let them know what the problem is.
As you're building the planner, the prerec's built in, so if you click on a class prior to taking the prereq, it won't allow you to do that because of
You
planner?
can still put it in there, but they won't be able to register without the prereq. So you can put it
So
in
they
there.
can create a plan that's really out of sequence, is what I
Right.
just heard.
That's
Right.
why we still advise them and help them adjust.
Help them adjust it. I help them adjust it.
Okay.
But again, thinking in terms of, we had a conversation about how can we empower them and encourage them to do more of their own. Maybe this is a tool. The other thing that I don't think we have the reports yet, but because this is all digital, saved information, one of the reports as administrators, and Dan, you talked about this earlier, is, gosh, can we get a list of how many students put in their plan that in summer 2014 they need physics or English or whatever?
Yep.
Holy cow! Then we could say, yeah, I've got 40 students that need it from Mount Calm.
And that's really their intention of where they want to go with it, is really to be able to start to do the predictive modeling of how many courses they're going to need over time. So, it's the little steps to get going and try all of that. But, I can't say enough about it. Are there the glitches? Absolutely. And not everyone's going to be a believer. But I was just like you guys. I sat there last summer going, I can't believe they're making me do this. Can't believe it. And then Dion was out last summer, and so I was working with her advisees, and I never did get through my 500 check sheets that I needed to update last summer. And so it was like, that was my breaking point. I had to find something to get through these because I could not keep manually updating check sheets all the time. So.
Can you go through the footage option?
Sure.
I like that we have, digital animation, game design, we have some students that were like, no, maybe I want D and not C, and so I like that option.
Yep. What if is kind of a neat feature, and I think Janelle was talking about it as well. A student comes to you and says, I wanted business administration, now I want marketing. How do my credits go? Well, What If allows you to do that without having to do it paper pencil. And so you can click on What If. And within my degree, the 170 degree programs that Ferris has is in here. So you can choose by level. You can choose by catalog year, and you should always update that so you have the most recent. And then you can pick any one of the majors that Ferris has out there. So if I wanted to know what mine looks like with CJ, I could click on that, and it'll look at all of the students' credits based upon that degree.
Katie, if a student goes inactive
Mhm.
and they come back in, their My Degree refreshes to the newest catalog
Yep.
year?
Yes, it will. If they've reapplied for admission, yes, they'll be on whatever, because that's part of the sunset policy. The sunset policy states you're out more than 2 consecutive semesters, you come back on whatever the new check sheet's in place at the time. So yes, it does. It does reflect the most recent calendar year. But the neat thing is that if a student goes inactive and they're at GRCC and they actually took courses with us and they're at GRCC or any community college and they want to know what they still need to take, you can still access their My Degree and be able to see that information without wondering where you put that in a paper file. So, but What If is kind of neat. I mean, there was a student that earned 5 degrees from Ferris because one day evidently she had a lot of time on her hands and went through and did What If and found that she was within a course or two of 5 different degree programs that Ferris has here. And so I ended up with 5 different degrees. So,
I want to know her loan information.
so, but I mean, I certainly think it is a good product. You'll see, I mean, here's the GRCC course. I mean, it tells right there, there's the grade. So, I mean, it is bringing in transfer credits. You're seeing additional courses down here. What's not applicable is down here. So if they withdrew. The SAP, yep. You want to know how many courses, credits don't apply? There you go. So, you know, there's lots of neat features, and I think we're only on the very beginnings of what the system can do.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Sorry, took too much time.
No, that was awesome. She was pretty good for impromptu.
I've done it enough.
So, unless there are other questions or concerns, I think our ending questions for you are, was this valuable? Is this good to do something like this on a periodic basis? If so, how often? What suggestions would you have to change what we did today? Open up the floor.
I would like us to, I would just like to meet again, and I'm not gonna suggest a time, but I'd like to have an opportunity to maybe look at some of the things that we talked about today to see how we could implement some of those things. You know, one of the things that our team brought up was connecting students to other people and making them more about Ferris and maybe doing a community activity. So if we got together and had some time to work on that, how would we do that? What would we choose? You know, how many people are interested in doing that? You know, I think that it would be nice to flesh out those and other things as well.
I'd encourage you to send us the survey.
Okay. So you can give us the bad news confidentially. Other comments about today?
I would suggest you send an email out with the questions that you just sent for later
Okay.
this week and see if anybody pops a question.
Okay.
I did love being able to actually meet people face to face that we talk to all the time, and I think that really helped kind of build a little more of that camaraderie and a little more of that, you know, connection with people. So that was extremely beneficial.
Good. I know it's a Friday, no less, and we take your whole day. We appreciate your participation and attendance. I certainly think I got a lot out of it in the suggestions and ideas you had, and so we will take those back to the committee and try and figure out how we incorporate some of those. We'll send out a survey. Wrap up? Done?
Thank you.
Thank